weekends as an anchor on 3 News, weeknights as a reporter. She has been covering education for us very closely, the reopening of schools, and many, many other topics. And I'm pleased to welcome in Romney Smith for tonight, Romney, and a timely discussion as we do these Turning Points monthly. And as the trial has begun, there are so many things to look into and to really dissect. And we've brought in a terrific panel to help us do it tonight.
Absolutely. Dino, thank you so much for the welcome introduction. I appreciate it. I've been a journalist for about 12 years now, and every now and then there is just a case that kind of captivates the nation. This is definitely one of them that I think everyone, whether you want to see it or not, on TV, on your phone, you're seeing a headline pretty much every day. Today was day 2 of the trial. We thank you guys for joining us on this very interesting conversation because there are a lot of nuances. I want to preface this by saying we will not be able to cover everything because there's so much. But I am very pleased to welcome and introduce 2 of our guest panelists, Dr. India Ford and Dr. Betsy Salzberg. Dr. Ford, if you could just give us a quick 30-second introduction for yourself, and then we'll move on to Dr. Salzberg.
Yes, my name is Dr. India Ford. I am the director and founder of T-Squared Honors Academy, which is a school located in Warrensville. I'm also a speaker and also a consultant for educational institutions.
Excellent. Dr. Salzberg?
Yes, I'm a child and adolescent psychologist, have been for 30 years, and had the great opportunity to begin working with Dr. Ford. I was trying to figure it out, India, if it was 3 or 4 years ago. I think it was 4.
It was 4.
I will not give the details of that first phone call at 5 in the morning. I will not. But I really wanted to say it's great to be able to see Dr. Ford today because we haven't been in session for a year. We have not been for a year, so we have not had to have any discourse at all. Also, I want to thank you, Dr. Ford, for saying yes, for accepting when I reached out to you, because you were the first person I thought of when I was asked to be a guest here. And then I just wanted to thank you for providing a forum where people of different, shall I say, different religions, races, opinions can sit together, can chat together with civility.
Absolutely.
We don't see that much, any of us in mainstream media. So thank you.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things I'm here to do. All right. So let's dig into it. Let me set the stage by saying it was no easy task to seat the jury in the high profile murder trial for former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin. What's typically done in about 48 hours took 2 full weeks to select jurors to be unbiased. Now, the lead defense attorney has told a potential juror during the jury selection process that the trial was, quote, not about race. However, in his line of questioning, he might have suggested otherwise, asking them their views on racism, policing, and the Black Lives Matter movement. So I'm going to begin with this question. Either one of you can go first. Do you feel that this high-profile trial is influenced by race, because we know the race of the victim is Black and the race of the officer is white, and why or why not?
Okay, you were going to let me and I was going to let you. Okay, so I think that the first operative word in the question is, now in the question you said, do we think or do we feel, correct? Those are the 2 terms. So when someone asks me a question about what I think or what I feel, I think emotion. This is about personal emotion. The thing is this case is not about my personal emotion. It's really about the law. So for that reason, I don't want to give you my subjective opinion. I want to give you an accurate response, as much as one can give without being an attorney.
Okay.
I don't support playing the race card in any situation, not in this one, not in any of them. The defense attorney, as you said, already stated that this case is not about race. He has stated that. He stated it many times. The thing is, I'm not sitting in the room. I don't know anything but what I saw on the videotapes that have been shown, and they were horrific. I don't know one person who didn't think what we saw with our 2 eyes was horrific. We all agree on that. Yeah. But I don't know the vagaries of the case. Could there be race involved? Yes, there could be. Could it not be involved? Yes, that could equally be true. So I'm going to have to say the law has to decide, and this one's going to take a lot of patience.
Dr. Ford, what are your thoughts?
I definitely believe the law has to decide, but I mean, we can't negate the fact that race is going to be an issue, primarily because of history. When you think historically, race has always been a primary issue when you're talking about the different cases that have been going on throughout even just recently with Philando Castile, et cetera. So there are, unfortunately, in this situation, the Black community is really going to be looking at this case, and it is going to play a tremendous part in turning our society in a specific direction. So I do believe that race is definitely going to play a tremendous part in this trial.
One thing that we know is different about this particular situation is there was a very unique atmosphere around it, right? We have seen in the past police brutality. We've seen that before. But we were in the midst of a nationwide lockdown. Remember this, Dino? Whole nation's locked down. Not everyone, a lot of people are working from home. We're on our phones, we're on our TV. And it was something that you couldn't get away from. Whereas in the past, when there was, let's say, a police brutality case from whichever state, you had the option to turn channels because there was a lot of other things going on. It seemed like no one in the nation could get away from hearing about it, seeing a clip about George Floyd and what happened with Officer Chauvin. Now, one interesting thing is I think a lot of people thought how, like you said, Dr. Salzberg, I don't think anyone thought it was okay because it horrified everybody. Right. And so now as we're getting into the legal factoid of this, let's talk about the jury. The jury is diverse. It has one Black woman, 3 Black men, and I always put a little star right there because 2 of those Black men are immigrants, and we know that the immigrant experience is different than if you're born and raised here, regardless of what race you are, but had to point that out. And then 2 self-identified multiracial people, and then 6 white people. The county where this trial is happening is 17% Black. So this is a very diverse jury. And so that's just making me think, is that important when it comes to this? Because we all know, let's say if it was 1920, it probably would have been an all-white jury and no one would have seen a problem with that. It is very diverse. Dr. Ford, I'll start with you. What is the importance of having a diverse jury with regard to this case?
I think it's extremely important to have a diverse jury, primarily because it gives the perception that it's going to be a fair trial. You know, it's going to be fair. And I think that with having the diversity of the jury, the individuals will do an exceptional job of looking at, for example, those African-American, and you're right, they are immigrants. 2 of them are immigrants. So they may not have the same perception as the one African-American male that's on there, on the jury, because that particular African-American male may think, okay, well, we get treated a certain type of way all the time. Whereas those 2 immigrants might come from a different, area or they're a different country, and they haven't seen that before. So they may think African-Americans here in our society are treated equally. So they may have that flat line, okay, this is where it is. This is what it is. So I think it is extremely important, but I do have a little bit of a concern, primarily also because the African-American female is 60 years old. That concerns me as well, primarily because by 60 years old, I think about my mother and how she actually, by that time, has, discovered Christianity. And, in the Black community, Christianity and forgiveness is very, very important. Mm-hmm. And so with that Christianity and that forgiveness, if she's on the jury, she could kind of sway into that, okay, well, let's forgive him. He did this. We know he did it. It was wrong, but let's forgive him. And that's something that kind of scares me too. I do believe that this is a very, very significant point as far as the jury, though. Mm-hmm.
Dr. Salzberg.
I'm gonna tag along on to what Dr. Ford said. You see, because the attorney has made it very clear, not once, not twice, not thrice, but many times, that this is not going to, this is not, race is not involved, and there will not be racists on the jury. Your mother would not have gotten onto that jury. But here's why. Because the attorney, when he or she is making, in this case he, is making selections for jurors, he is framing and focusing his questions in such a way as to keep any racists off the jury. So for that reason, does race matter with regard to this jury? Yes, it matters very much. It matters to keep race out of it. That's what matters.
Can we ever really keep race out of it, though? Because we all
Exactly.
come from a different background with different experiences, right? So if I'm Asian, I'm coming with one life experience. If I'm white and underprivileged, if I'm Black and privileged, if I'm can you ever truly come and separate yourself from race?
Well,
Dr. Salzberg, I'll let you start with that one.
Sorry, you wanted me to start with that? Here's what I wanted to say. So it's really interesting because then listen to your words, like every Asians have an experience, white experience, Black, Jews, as in myself, Christian, whatever maybe. But you see, I don't buy that we all just have one experience. I don't see the world that way. I don't. And that's why I said earlier, and Dr. Ford, you know this from having a relationship with you for 4 years time. I mean, the two of us, have we ever once discussed politics, race? I mean, never in 4 years. Why? It's just not important in our relationship with us. And why are we in a relationship? Because we care about children. And the bottom line is we want to do what's best for a kid at the end of the day. Well, I've got to look at this trial the same way. The attorneys are very well versed in what queries to pose to prospective jurors. We have to be confident in something. I'm confident that he's going to weed out anyone, regardless of background. I hear what you're saying, Romney. I hear what you're saying. But not Asian, Jew, white, Black, Christian, Muslim has the same life experience. These are
I believe with intersectionality, though, right? So I can recognize where I'm privileged and not privileged. And so when you look at that, can you then separate the fact that I'm a woman, I'm Christian, I'm Black, I'm able-bodied? I mean, that in and of itself, I can acknowledge my privilege and disprivilege in different things. And so with that intersectionality, I'm just wondering, how is it possible to strip it all away? Because then if we strip it all away, you try to look at everyone as equal when we know the history of this country means everyone was not treated equally and still is not to a degree.
Exactly.
Dr. Ford, do you want to say anything before I?
Well, I wanted to, piggyback on what you said, Dr. Salzberg, because I definitely agree that our relationship is not built on, our, personal quote unquote experiences. We are here for children. I completely agree. But I do believe that you can't be blind to, the fact that this is a serious African-American issue. Because you have a white man that's rocking on the neck of a Black man, and in history, this has happened time and time again. I mean, even when we're looking at Breonna Taylor actually is in her home, and just because she dated a man that was maybe not the best, citizen in our society, she ends up getting killed, and the person who killed her, who was white, does not get in trouble for it. So I think this is so racially motivated to me that, I don't know if you can say that race won't be seen, or you can't see it, or it's not important here.
Yeah, I'm not, please don't misinterpret Dr. Ford or anyone on the panel. So I'm not saying don't see it. Of course, we all see, we can see what colors we are and so forth. However, I am saying that we have to be able to have some kind of trust this is our legal system. This is our legal system. Okay, all right, we're not going to go into that. We're not going to get into that. Let me piggyback on something else you said, Dr. Ford.
Okay.
The mainstream media, sadly, puts in front of us what they want us to see, which is why, by the way, I won't get to see this because I don't have television anymore. It just all got to me. I don't watch shows anymore because they show us, yes, you're right. And this is it's an obvious case of this murder that occurred, George Floyd.
Yeah.
That. But some of the others, well, there have been many cases. What if we switched for discussion purposes, Black with white? Okay, so I don't know, Black cop, white guy, white child, Black neighbor, whatever. Would we still be having this discussion? I don't know. I don't know.
I will say
So
that
I
that
think-
did happen probably 2 years ago, where a Black male cop shot and killed a white unarmed female, and he is in jail. And he was convicted. And I don't remember off the top of my head, I can't tell you how many years he's serving, but I think you're right in that, in my personal and professional opinion, I do think that discussion would still warrant this, because it enraged a lot of people. I think anytime there's a loss of life of any person who is unarmed, there should be a discussion. So when you talk about stripping race, while I think it can be a factor, I see what you're saying as far as we need to look at the person, the training of the officer, the atmosphere of what was going on. We all know officers have mere seconds to figure stuff out and then take whatever action they're trained to do. I'm not saying they're all trained the same, because they're not, but we know it's a very tenseful situation. But I think that is something you both brought up, and I'm trying to be mindful of our time right now, is that you're both involved with educating kids and teens, and that's where your bond comes in. Even though you have differences, you work together professionally, and you both focus on kids. I cannot leave them out of this conversation, because when we're speaking to kids and teens, we cannot be so naive to think that they're not absorbing part of this trial. I remember when I was a kid and I saw the O.J. Simpson trial, and I know my mother tried to shield it from me, but I still absorbed some of it. Didn't really understand it all, but I absorbed it. Kids now who are absorbing this, I think some of them might be trying to figure out, is race a factor? What do I think about this? I've been taught to trust police. I've been taught not to trust police because of my maybe family interactions with them. How are parents able to talk to their kids about what's going on? Because this is a huge legal case that some kids might be forming their opinions around identity, around policing, around what's fair, what's not fair.
And it'll stay with you. It'll stay with them. Like, OJ was in 1994, and we still talk about it.
Absolutely. What was that line? If the glove don't fit, you must have quit. Like, iconic line. I can't even look at a white Bronco the same.
The first thing parents must do is be mindful of the age of the child. So I always give, it's similar advice I gave when parents said, what do I tell my kid about COVID? And I'd say, well, how old is the child? Has the child asked you any questions? Here's why. If a child isn't asking questions, and I know this case is a little different, I get it, I understand. If the child isn't coming with questions, wait with patience. Or if you're not comfortable with that, a parent might say something like, you've heard about this and so happening in the news, and I just want you to know, if and when you have any questions, feel free to come to me or dad, or come to mom or me to ask anything at all. So make yourself available. But the other thing really is, one must be mindful of the development of a child's brain. The child's brain is different from the teen brain, is different from the young adult brain. The brain is developing until young adulthood, through to age 27. So sometimes it's a case of TMI, too much information. So that's what I would say. And always also remember this, a parent who, once he or she introduces race into a question, you can't take it out. You cannot unring a bell.
I'd agree with that.
Mind to form his or her own opinions.
I would agree with that. Dr. Ford, do you think that once a parent introduces the concept of race, if a kid previously didn't think about it, that you can never unteach
You never can undo it. No, you cannot. No, you cannot, especially when it comes to the police, and when it comes to dealing with the police. I think about, my children. So I'm in total agreement with Mrs. Salzberg, or Dr. Salzberg, because when it comes to me, I have a son and I have a daughter. And with my son, I had to teach him certain ways on how he had to deal with had to deal with police in general. There are certain ways that you have to act. There are certain ways that you have to deal with interactions with the police. So it's almost like teaching both my daughter and my son a dual America. You have to be this way when you're in front of these particular people, and then you have to be you can be this way or yourself when you're around these people. So it's an unfortunate turn of events, or an unfortunate case when African Americans in general have to teach their children to be a certain type of way. And in regards to this case, yes, if a child, and I do believe age is important, if a child is younger, I don't know if I would tell them a lot of information about this particular case, especially bringing up race. But as a child gets older, when they're in, for our school, it's 7 through 12, when you're talking about a senior or you're talking about a junior who is going out into the real world, it is now time to talk about these serious issues and how you relate to those things. So it is very critical and very important.
And let me ask this, can we separate it, right? And I ask that because a lot of people are taught to trust police. They are there to protect you. If you need help for whatever, you call 911. That is our emergency helpline. On the same fence, a lot of parents say, but you still need to be cautious, but you still have to watch out. And I tend to find that tends to be minority parents. Dr. Salzberg, and do you think that that is a discussion that a lot of non-Black households are having, and do they need to have that, or explain why other kids might have that conversation?
I think any family that has, I'm going to say boys specifically, but I guess we could put girls in there too, who are reaching driving age, or going out on their own and having experiences. Yes, but I would not restrict that to Black kids. I would look, if we have one or two bad apples, I for the most part trust my police force here. Yes, I know there are bad apples everywhere, but the majority of police officers, men and women, are decent, good people out doing their job. I think it's really important to tell a child this. It's important. Might they have an experience that goes awry? They might, but they won't if they follow certain rules and regulations. And that's where I agree with Dr. Ford. It is important to have a mini training session, if you will. If you do, not if. But when you do get stopped by an officer,
right.
I mean, you don't try to talk out of it. You do as you're asked to do, regardless of what happens. So that's important for all kids. Let's not make that about race. It's not. I understand, Dr. Ford, what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, and I understand your emphasis on it.
Mm-hmm. And the reason why I emphasize it is because, again, if we go back to experiences, my experience would definitely be different from your experience, possibly. I don't know, because we haven't really talked about our experiences together. But, I do believe when I speak about my experiences and what I've seen of what the police have done, because I totally believe in the police. I definitely am a strong supporter of the police department. I do believe there are bad apples. I do believe there's bad apples in any, career or profession. But I think that African Americans, and I'm just speaking as an African American female, we do have to be very cautious of how we act and how we interact with the police. And so I did teach my son how to interact, because just going back to Philando Castile, he did everything right. It seemed like that. He did everything right. He had his hands on the, wheel. He was told to do a certain thing and act in a certain way. He did it, and then he still got shot. So I don't want my son, my African-American son, actually not doing what is said, or even doing what is said, and then ended up being killed. So I am very, very cautious about it. I do teach my son this. As far as the school is concerned, I don't, say a lot about this information because it's not my place. It is the parents' place to really discuss these things.
Well, let me say this. We're kind of winding down now. I have to ask, and this is a personal question, and I'm going to just say it. Are both of you ladies paying close attention to the trial? Are you seeing how this is going to play out? And I know it's going to take weeks, but are you going to be watching and paying attention?
Well,
yes.
I have. Yeah, of course. Yes, of course. Okay, so Dr. Ford, I'm going to rely on you. I seriously have no TV left. I know I never thought I could.
But you can watch it on your phone now. You can watch it on your phone.
Right.
That was me. No, I am not doing that. But here's the thing. Of course, I'm going to be aware of what's going on.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, of course I am.
Are you looking for anything specific in the trial, or are you just kind of watching to see what the updates are?
I am really waiting for this verdict. I am waiting for the end result, what's really going to happen, because to me, I am personally fearful that he is going to go free. And a lot of people, it's so funny because people are looking at me like, well, really? You think he's going to go free? Seriously? I'm just thinking historically, what has happened over the years. And you would think, well, wait a minute, there was a video, you saw this, and he still went free. The person still went free.
I remember Rodney King, Dr. Ford.
Yes.
There was a video, and that seemed like it was open and shut.
Exactly. And it wasn't. And
right.
It's unbelievable. So I am really, really waiting to see what this verdict is going to be, because if the verdict turns out that he is not guilty, which is it's a possibility, especially in this situation. If it turns out that he's not guilty, that's going to be a serious blow again to the African-American community. So, I'm waiting for the verdict.
Dr. Salzberg.
I have one last comment. And Dr. Ford, you mentioned historically and what has happened historically. So I want to add this piece of history because I don't understand what's happened. I am blessed to have been a graduate of Shaker Heights High School in the 1970s. I'm not going to say when, but she knows, 1970s. So Shaker Heights was considered to be the most successfully integrated not only community, but school district in the country, in the whole country. I was there. It was great. All I'm saying is, I get it. I'm not naive, and I'm not being prudish. I get it. There have been changes. But historically, no, we haven't. Black and white, we subsisted, we got along, we were educated. There were no problems in that community. That's a microcosm. I understand. It's sort of like, Dr. Ford, you and I, we're a microcosm. But if we can get together and start to look at these kind of historical issues, maybe we can talk about what happened over the decades. How did we go from here to here? I don't know.
I'm in total agreement, but I'm in total agreement, Dr. Salzberg, but how many people are willing to do that? That's the question. How many people are willing to do that? And it starts, of course, with all the different institutions within our society. So like you have the, educational institution, you have the judicial institutions that all play a significant part in racism. So it's so important that we begin to make these changes together, which is true, but it's still, people have to be willing to do it. That's my point. I'm sorry.
There's like us around, and you know what? People are afraid. Romney and Dino know that people are afraid.
Sure.
Dr. Ford, I don't know that I knew I could count on you. I know the type of person you are. You and I are very much alike. We really are.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Yes. I know other Black women, men, this and that. I don't know that they would have come on here with me because this is a public forum. But you're here, so there's hope.
Yeah.
I would agree.
And I respect you too, Dr. Salzberg.
I was just going to say, you both respect each other, not only as women, but as professionals. And that's a huge aspect of it. But to Dr. Salzberg's point, a lot of people are afraid of what's different because maybe they didn't grow up around it. So it might seem, quote unquote, foreign or different, exotic or unique. And they don't want to put in the effort to do that. But I think it's been my personal life experience that when you do put in that effort, that energy, you start to see more things in common than you might not have realized, whether it comes to conversations, food, traditions, dress, what you like to do for fun. And so I think when you start to find those commonalities, you start to recognize and respect the humanness in other people. And when we can recognize and respect that, and we find commonality, that's when we can say, now we're on the same page. Now let's all try to move forward together. The question is, some people don't want to, and others.
That's my point.
Very hard to do with a mainstream media narrative. I'm just going to leave it at that. Really hard to do.
I'm trying to help Dr. Salzberg. I'm trying to.
We're fighting it. We're fighting it. We're going to fight that narrative.
Not speaking of Lee Ford. You guys know what I'm talking about.
I do.
I don't have TV. That's
No
We're going to teach you all the different ways you can stream online, because you don't really need a TV, because I don't have cable TV either. So let me just tell you that you don't have to. I can still watch all the news on our WKYC.com app. We stream it live. You can watch it, not a problem.
Okay, we'll talk.
Ladies,
talk.
thank you so much for joining us. I think this has been productive, and if we wanted to, we could go on another hour, but out of respect for your time and our viewers, we're going to leave it there. Dino?
All right, that's it for a Turning Point. We will be back Thursday night at 7 on Front Row, a Turning Point. You'll see a portion of this there, but we'll have this entire interview available at wkyc.com, so you can watch this panel again on our YouTube page as well. So, but we'll be continuing to have these conversations going forward with you out there as the trial continues and as we continue as a nation. For Romney Smith and for our wonderful panel, I'm Dave DeNatale. Thanks for watching, everyone, right here on WKYC.com.
That was great, ladies. Thank you so much.
I was so nervous.
You guys did so
sorry.
good.
I couldn't even get my thoughts together. I was like, oh my God, I am so nervous.
I hope I had a good line of questioning for you both. I thought you did excellent. I think